Muslim
Continue.
So as I was explaining about ligaments, these ligaments are connective tissues and they will keep the various structures more or less fixed in a position or in a suspended state in the pelvic region or supports them, and those structures are called connective tissue called ligaments. Now one ligament, as I showed here, this ligament is called as ovarian ligament. It will attach the ovary to uterus. And there is another ligament, this one here, it binds both for the uterus as well as the ovary. This ligament is called as broad ligament. And similarly will be the ligaments here, that is called as suspensory ligaments. So there are different types of ligaments. The purpose of this ligament, as I already told, it supports and holds this system in position in pelvic girdle. So that is the various types of ligaments present. Then, as I told, that primary sex organ is called for two reasons. And one reason I already mentioned, that it produces ovum. The ovary produces the ovum within the developing follicles, which in detail will be explained in further classes. And these developing follicles can be primary, secondary, tertiary follicle as well as Graafian, mature Graafian follicle. So the ovum which is present inside this Graafian follicle, which will be developing inside this Graafian follicle, will be released outside. So it will be released outside the ovum. Now this ovum that is released outside the ovary tube, and this tube is called fallopian tube or oviduct. Now how the ovulation occurs? This process where the ovum is released from the ovary through mature Graafian follicle, the phenomenon is called as ovulation, and it is hormonally controlled. Ovary is embryologically from mesoderm. Again, has in the month of gestation. So this completes explanation about the primary sex organs. Now you can see that just very near to this ovary there is a long tube. This tube is called oviduct. It's also called fallopian tube, and also has one more name like salpinx. So this is about fallopian tube. It is also known as oviduct. The term which you should know that is also called oviduct. It is about 12 centimeters. The length of fallopian tube is 12 centimeters. Now it can be divided into regions. Okay. And The regions will be, first part here, this one, it is called fimbriae. What are fimbriae is finger-like projections, and that is the part of fallopian. Fimbriae. Finger-like projections. Fimbria, finger-like projections. Now, how do these fimbriae, they lie close to the ovary, and these finger-like projections, fimbriae, try to sweep over the surface of ovary or brush over the surface of ovary. Now, as they brush or sweep over the ovary, they will collect the ovum into the fallopian tube, because ovary is not permanently connected to fallopian tube. So then how the ovum will be collected? By the sweeping or brushing action of fallopian tube, the ovum will be collected by this fimbriae, finger-like projections. Now you know 2 points regarding it. First is its finger-like projection, and it will help in collection of ovum. Now just before this finger-like projection, after continuation of this finger-like projection, there is a funnel-shaped structure called infundibulum. So you all know how the funnel will be there. This is how the funnel is, and there is an opening here, and that is how structure of funnel will be. Now this portion is similar to the funnel, like this. You can take it. So it is funnel-shaped structure here called infundibulum. Now when you see this funnel-shaped structure, you will suppose you are viewing this fallopian tube from this side. So these are the fimbriae, and then comes the funnel-shaped structure infundibulum with an inlet, that with the aperture there, which is just 3 mm in diameter, and this one is called ostium. Got it? So the next part infundibulum is funnel shape. Is funnel shaped, and from the infundibulum only finger-like projections called what will arise? Fimbriae will arise. And it is also known that all the fimbriae, the fimbriae that is the longest is successfully able to collect the ovum, and that can be termed as fimbriae ovaricum. So now after infundibulum comes the wider and the longest part of the fallopian tube. So wide and longest part of fallopian tube, it is called fallopian tube. It is called ampulla. This is the first part, second part, third part, ampulla. It is very broad part and is also longest part of fallopian tube. Now what is the significance of ampulla is, here itself majority of fusion occurs, fusion between sperm and ovum. That means fertilization, most of the fertilizations will occur in ampullary region. So therefore it is a site for majority of fertilization. Site for majority of fertilization. Now, this was the broadest part and the longest part. Then comes the narrowest part of the ovid. It is called isthmus. Isthmus is narrowest part. But here the walls are very thick, but here the walls are very thin. So broadest part, but the wall is thin. This is the narrowest part, but the wall is thick. And of course, in between this region, it can be called ampullary isthmus junction. And here also what happens is fertilization may occur here also in ampullary isthmus junction, but majority of the fertilization usually occurs in the ampullary region or in the region called ampulla. So this was about all these structured together forms a tube called oviduct or fallopian tube, also called salpinx. Now what does a fallopian, what all events occur in fallopian tube and what does it consist of? Now first I'll tell what does it consist of, what this tube is actually made up of. This tube should have a serosa membrane. It should have muscles, both circular and longitudinal muscles are there. When both muscles are together, that is circular and longitudinal muscles are together, then what is possible is peristaltic movement can be possible in this fallopian tube. And it is lined by ciliated columnar epithelium. So the epithelium that lines inside of this fallopian tube is called ciliated columnar epithelium. If at all there is any cell which is non-ciliated, it can have a role of some secretions, and those secretions will be flowing in the lumen of fallopian tube. And they also can contain chemicals that can nourish the ovum that is collected by fimbriae. So here the ovum is released from the ovary and then it will be collected with the help of fimbriae. Now the ovum should move towards the uterus or womb. Now movement is basically aided by two factors here. One is already I told it has peristaltic movement, so gradual wavy movement of the fallopian tube makes possible, that means makes this possible, that is movement of ovum, because of which the ovum is able to move. The second factor that also aids in movement of ovum is the beating of cilia, which is present in ciliated columnar epithelium. So synergy of beating of cilia as well as peristaltic movement, both will make the ovum to move across this fallopian tube. During its movement, it may get fertilized here in ampullary region. So this was about fallopian tube. And this is also, this part is being cut and tied in a surgical procedure called tubectomy. And the purpose of this procedure is to prevent the pregnancy, and therefore it is also called permanent contraception. So when the tube is cut and tied here, the ovum is blocked and occluded from moving across the uterus. So what happens? The ovum remains here itself. It will not move to uterus. And once this lifespan, after a few days, once this lifespan is over, it is going to die, and the matter of the cell is reabsorbed in the surrounding cells. So this was about fallopian tube. The second part of the female reproductive system. So every month ovary releases one ovum, and usually it will be alternate. And then when an ovum is released, it should be collected into. Suppose there is a defective cilia or there is any defect in the muscular peristalsis, then the ovum cannot move into the fallopian tube in a normal way. That can affect the ability to produce children, and therefore it may lead to infertility. And infertility is common, especially when the cilia is abnormal. Now, this isthmus will open into uterus. This is called uterus. So uterus uterus is also called womb. So uterus is also called hysteron. It is commonly called womb of a mother. So what all you should know about the uterus? It is inverted pear shape. Here is a fruit. So inverted pear shape it is. Good. And it can be further divided into. It can further divided into parts. This part, which is dome shaped, it is called fundic region, or called as fundus, and it has thick layers of smooth muscles. And the remaining rest part here, this is called body of the uterus. And the inferior part, here actually it should be narrow. The inferior part is called cervix. Now I'll explain about the uterus. So parts of uterus is being explained. So uterus consists of fundus, body and cervix. The uterus, the wall of the uterus also has three layers. One thin layer is there called perimetrium. Another thick layer is there called endometrium. Myometrium. And the inner one here, which I will cover with the same blue side, that is called the endometrium. So three layers are there. Perimetrium, myometrium and endometrium. So perimetrium is a thin layer, thin cover it is. Okay. So it is a peritoneal layer. It is having a role of protection. and it is consisting of epithelium. Whereas myometrium is a muscular layer. So it means that the uterus is made up of strong, smooth muscles, not voluntary muscles, but they are made up of very strong, smooth muscles. And those muscle layer is present in the middle layer called myometrium. And then comes the innermost layer, endometrium. Innermost layer is endometrium, that is supposed to have a role in menstrual cycle. Now role and function of each of this layer. What is the function of each of this? First layer, perimetrium, is for protection. The second layer, myometrium, is for parturition. That means whenever a baby develops here, that is when fetus develops, and when fetus development completes, the newborn will be delivered outside, and that process is called parturition. And for that newborn or fully developed fetus to expel outside the body, there should be strong muscle contraction, and that contraction is also hormonally controlled. And for example, the hormone that controls the parturition, which we have studied already, is oxytocin. So under the influence of oxytocin hormone, these muscles of the uterus will contract strongly. Due to that strong contraction, the fully developed fetus is ejected outside, or it is expelled outside, the process called as parturition. And that is the importance of myometrium. And third layer, endometrium. Endometrium grows every month and cuts every month, and the discharge is released in woman, and it is a cyclical event occurring, and that is nothing but menstrual cycle. And the first phase of menstrual cycle that marks the discharge is menstruation phase. Now this endometrium further can be divided into two parts, in that the inner part and the outer part, the basal part and the outer part. Yeah, that is called as the two layers. In that entire endometrium does not break and shed, but only portion of it will be breaking and shedding outside in the form of discharge. Okay, so it means that endometrium has a role in cyclical events that are occurring in women, and that cyclical event is nothing but menstrual cycle. So that means every month, say for example, I'll show it separately here. Every month, for example, as the endometrium becomes thicker and thicker due to hormonal influence, and if there is no fertilization, then this endometrium breaks, a portion of it breaks. Two portions are the stratum physalis and stratum functionalis. It is the functionalis that sheds out, that are broken and shed out, and this one will be released as a discharge. So it means that endometrium is involved in cyclical events called menstrual cycle, on regularly shedding. Then lower part, that is the lower part of the uterus, that is the region of the lower part of the uterus is called cervix. Now cervix has a narrow passage here. Suppose this is a cervix. It has a narrow passage. This passage is called the cervical canal. And see here uterus starts, and here. So you can see cervix has two openings. One opening is facing towards the uterus and another opening is opening into the vagina. And therefore it's called internal OS and external OS. Then this was about the cervix. This region, a common disease occurs in this region, that is the cervix. It's called as cancer. So cervical cancer is common in women, usually caused by various factors, one of the factors being human papilloma virus. So this cervix is associated with strong muscles, circular muscles. Now, after cervix comes the vagina. So this part is called vagina. So this is the part that is going to be opening outside. This vagina is around 10 centimeters. The length is 10 centimeters and it is stretchable. That means distensible it is. That means it is able to stretch, it is flexible, it is stretchable, or you can tell it is distensible. And it has folds. On the inner side it is supposed to have the folds called vaginal rugae. The pH inside the vagina is acidic due to presence of a bacteria called lactic acid bacteria. And because of this acidic, so here you can see that there is two regions taking further this side. It's not totally flat. This is called as vaginal old region, so it's called fornix. Its importance will come in contraception, where old caps are used. Old caps will cover this old region of the vagina. Now the type of epithelium that is present in vagina, it is nothing but non-keratinized squamous epithelium. Of course, it is a compound epithelium, stratified. That means the inner lining of vagina is not a simple epithelium, but it is a compound epithelium, which is also called stratified epithelium, which has many layers. Now, the purpose of presence of this stratified epithelium is protective function. It can protect this region due to abrasion and other, prevent it from getting damaged. So that is about the vagina. And when these two are combined, that is cervix and vagina, they can also be called as which canal? Birth canal. Usually both cervix plus vagina, both are considered to be birth canal. It is because as the delivery process occurs or as the birth takes place, actually baby descends and passes through these canals. So So through these canal only what occurs is birth occurs. So it's also called birth canal. And now coming to entrance of, that means opening of the vagina. Here. Now opening of the vagina is partially covered by a membrane called hymen, which I am going to explain in the further. So this completes the main structures present in the female reproductive system. So to revise in a nutshell, primary sex organ is ovary, whereas accessory structures, secondary structures what? Fallopian tube, womb or uterus, vagina. So now duct system means what? That passes the secretion of reproductive system outside. So duct system means what? Accessory ducts. So accessory ducts consist of fallopian tube, uterus and the vagina. However, accessory glands will be taught when the structure of external genitalia is taken. So these are the two main parts or divisions within the female reproductive system. So here what happens? Accessory ducts consists of oviduct or salpinx or fallopian tube, uterus, all the three are called as accessory ducts. Whereas primary sex organ will be the ovary, and accessory glands consist of Bartholin, which I will explain the next one. Now, I want to explain the female reproductive system in terms of the important events in reproduction. So, when the ovum is released from Graafian follicle, this was the mature Graafian follicle, and the ovum was developing there, and then the ovum is released, and due to sweeping action or brushing action of fimbriae, the ovum is collected in fallopian tube. And this ovum keeps moving in fallopian tube. Now this should get fertilized within 12 to 24 hours in this region called ampullary region. And it should meet with the sperm in ampullary region simultaneously at the same time. Otherwise fertilization will not occur. Again, there will not be any successful pregnancy. Now the sperms are released here in the what do you call it? The sperms are released here in the vagina, the process called insemination. So millions of sperms are released and they ascend into from vagina, from the cervix into uterus. And suppose right now the ovum is supposed to be in this ampullary region, and this, out millions of sperms are there in the ejaculate, but however, most of them will die as they ascend into uterus due to phagocytic activity, and a few hundred of them make their way into this fallopian tube. Now, both sperm and ovum should meet simultaneously in this region called ampullary region. Then what happens? The sperm fuses with the ovum, resulting in formation of zygote. So already one step has occurred, gametogenesis, ovum is produced here, sperm is produced in the male, and it is inseminated. Second step. After insemination, what occurs is fertilization occurs to form zygote. So which part of the female reproductive system fertilization is involved? Fallopian tube. Particularly in fallopian tube, it is ampullary region of the fallopian tube. Then the zygote that is formed will start dividing and forming early embryos and keeps moving. So it means that division of the zygote is called cleavage. So even cleavage is a phenomenon occurring in fallopian tube. Got? And here collection of ovum by fimbriae, that is also function of fallopian. And then after the early embryo has developed, consider the zygote is divided and forms early embryo. That early embryo called blastocyst develops here, keeps on developing here. And then morula stage will be here, and then blastocyst. Now this early embryo stage now will bury itself in the endometrium. I told that this inner layer is called as endometrium. And this blastocyst gets buried in the endometrium, comes another phenomenon called implantation. So what all will occur here in uterus is fetal development will occur, gestation will be occurring here, implantation will be occurring here, or menstrual cycle events will be due to uterus. Parturition events are also due to components present in uterus. So these all are related to the uterus of hysteron. Whereas fertilization, cleavage, early embryonic stage like morula, they will be forming in fallopian tube. So this was about how the fertilization, and once implantation has occurred, it usually marks the successful pregnancy. Then comes cervix. After the implantation has occurred, the embryo starts growing, then fetus starts growing, and the fetus becomes fully developed. Then due to hormonal orchestra, you can tell the hormones the release during after the gestation period, they will cause the contraction of this uterus so that the fully developed fetus is expelled outside. Then phenomena occurring in vagina will be insemination, and second is it is acting as a birth canal. So this was about the female reproductive system. Next is primary sex organ is over, accessory ducts are over, and now external genitalia in female. The external genitalia will be the last part regarding the structure of female reproductive system. Additionally, there is one more structure which is functionally connected to the female reproductive system is mammary glands. We also further will be studying the structure of mammary glands after the external genitalia. External genitalia, just like external genitalia of male is called penis, here the external genitalia of the female is called vulva. So I will be giving a schematic diagram in order to explain the parts of the external genitalia. So first is there is the region on the anterior part. Suppose this is anterior, this is the posterior side. Whichever is proceeding, this direction is proceeding towards anterior. This will be proceeding towards posterior. So this is the mons pubis. This region is called mons pubis. What is the importance of mons pubis? Mons pubis, this layer is covered with fatty tissue. It is rich in fatty tissues. And second, this is the region of course it consists of skin and covered with hair. So it is considered to be the anterior-most part of external genitalia, the anterior-most part of the external genitalia. Understood? Then the next part will be the outer fold of the skin. You can also tell outer fold of tissue or skin. This outer fold of skin is called labia majora. It is the outer fold of skin. Now what it is characterized by? It also can be partially covered with the hair, and it is considered to be outer fold of the skin, and it is also having glands like sebaceous glands. From the labia majora, most of the internal structures of this external genitalia will be having the sebaceous glands or oil glands. So it is labia majora. It can be easily comparable to the labia majora is supposed to be outer fold of a skin. Then just inside the labia majora comes another inner fold of tissue, or you can tell inner fold of a skin. This inner fold of a skin is called labia minora. It's called as labia minora. Now whatever space will come in between the two folds, this labia minora, there is a fold. The space that comes in between the two is called as vestibule or vestibular part of external genitalia, or simply called vestibule. Now it has two openings. One is for outlet of urine, another is for outlet for vaginal organ. So this is called urethral meatus or urethral opening, and this is called vaginal orifice. That means opening of vagina is called vaginal orifice. So here directions are already assigned here, anterior and posterior. Here there is one structure which can be a vascular structure and an erectile tissue also here at this point. Now if you look at this position, it is anterior to which structure? Labia minora. So anterior to the labia minora, there is a minute finger-like projection. It is called as clitoris. Now clitoris is a finger-like projection. It is erectile and the nature of tissue is similar to corpora cavernosa of the penis. And if clitoris embryological origin is seen and if the embryological origin of the penis is seen, both embryological origin is the same. Since clitoris and the human male penis, their embryological origin is the same, they are considered to be homologous organs. So clitoris is homologous to penis in male owing to their common embryological origin. Now the difference between clitoris and penis is clitoris does not have any opening. So it does not have any opening, but penis has urethral opening. Therefore it is reduced and more or less may not be comparable to penis, but its embryological origin is the same, and that's why they will be considered as homologous. Then coming to a pair of a gland which are considered as accessory glands, they are called as greater vestibular glands. Now these pair of glands which are present in the vestibular region on either side of vaginal orifice, they are not present outside but they are present inside, towards the inside. These pair of glands are called as Bartholin glands. Bartholin glands, their function is same like Cowper's gland. What was the function of a Cowper's gland? Cowper's gland was helping in lubrication, and very similar function even Bartholin gland has. So its duct will open in the vestibular region just near to vaginal orifice, and this gland also helps in lubrication. It is also called racemose glands. It's called racemose glands. It is because of its structural reasons. So this is about the external genitalia in female. So in a nutshell, the external genitalia has mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora. Labia minora anteriorly has finger-like projection, erectile tissue. It's called as, and vascular also. It's called as clitoris. And there are two openings. The space between the two labia minora can be called vestibule. There are two openings. One is urethral meatus for release of urine, and another is vaginal orifice for birth and you can tell or for release of the menstrual discharge. Now here in the vaginal orifice there is a partial covering. So vaginal orifice can be partially covered by a membrane, very thin membrane here. This thin membrane is called hymen. Presence of this membrane in the past was considered as a sign of virgin or virginity. But now it is scientifically known that the hymen can rupture due to other reasons other than intercourse also. And those reasons can be sports like horse riding, cycling, sudden fall or jolt, use of tampons. All these can cause rupture of hymen, and therefore it cannot be believed that rupture of hymen is lack of virginity. And many a times a woman may not have a hymen by birth itself, and some women hymen will be present even after the intercourse. It will be persistent throughout the life. This indicates or this gives a clue that hymen is not proof of virginity. So this completes about the external genitalia in female. Here you can see two homologies which are commonly asked. One is Bartholin gland, homologous to Cowper's gland, and here also homology is based on its embryological origin. And it's of course the same species, closely related species, so you can use the word homologous organs. And here next homology is homology of clitoris with that of penis. So finally, the female reproductive system can be divided into primary sex organs and then accessory ducts. The third is accessory glands. But here there is one more gland that is functionally connected, which is used for nourishment of the young ones, which will be dealt in the later classes. That is structure of mammary glands. So you know primary sex organ, because of the hormone it releases, it has gametogenic function and it also has glandular function, that is endocrine function. Here it includes fallopian tube, uterus and vagina. Usually whenever the cervix and the vagina is combined, we call it as birth canal. And the accessory glands very much associated near to the female reproductive system was a Bartholin gland. It's also called as greater vestibular gland. And it opens in the vestibular region, which is explained in the external genitalia.